All right, everyone, it's 6:05 p.m. and we are calling the meeting to order. I'm not going to show my screen. I'll show you why. For whatever reason, I am upside down. So look, no hands. I'm hanging upside down. I'm pulling a Spider-Man. So I don't know what is going on. I've tried to figure that out, but I am challenged in that department. So I'll wait for Cameron to come here with the Geek Squad and help me out with that. So again, just be mindful that this is being recorded. It is being posted on the PCPB website as well as our YouTube channel. And so calling the meeting to order, we've got to take care of some parliamentary business. And so the first thing I'd like to do is review the meeting minutes from last time we met, which was in September.
Oh my.
If I could get, I didn't receive any amendments, so I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second. Nicole.
Who is that, Tina or Nicole?
Oh, will second.
Nicole, okay. All right, and then can I get an approval or abstention if you weren't at the September meeting? All right, so I'm gonna raise my hand in favor. I've got that. So Paul, if we can go ahead and get a vote at this time for approval or raise of hands. All right, 3, 6. All right, awesome.
I'll abstain because I don't think I was present at that meeting.
Okay, abstain.
I wasn't at the meeting. I'm abstaining.
And Delana, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, oh, 5. 5, 2 abstains. All right, and so we've got that taken care of. Going on to the meeting agenda. I know that Nicole mentioned she'd like to make a friendly amendment. If you want to go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks, Mandy. I just wanted to make a friendly amendment for the 2 information items at the bottom for the e-bike conversation and the Voltaire to be swapped, and have the e-bike conversation before the Voltaire, if we get to those 2 items at the end. So I know we have a packed agenda. So with that amendment and change in the agenda, I motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that. So that's, again, it's a friendly amendment as well as an approval for the meeting agenda. So I'll second that. We can go ahead and get a vote for the rest. Margaret, are you good?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So that's unanimous, 7-0. First, Nicole, second, Mandy. Okay. All right, so now we are coming to our first action item, which would be a request to install stop signs along the Voltaire area at either Soto or Bolinas. The last
Mandy, before we start, did you do non-public agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right, Margaret. I apologize. I did skip something. Thank you. We need to go to non-agenda public comment. Does anyone have a non-agenda public comment?
I just wanted to report to the group that I took to social media. I normally do this every year. I just haven't had involved. Just letting them know that we're here and addressing all their safety concerns. And, again, reprioritizing with the group that we are listening as an advisory board. And I did get a lot of traction. They're still commenting on Nextdoor and then again on social media. So what I'm going to do, the great thing is we're addressing a lot of the comments already, which means we're doing a great job, everyone. Thank you. And then for some of the new ones, I'm going to compile a news list that I'll submit to you, Mandy, and if we can kind of earmark it to speak about some of the new stuff at our next meeting, I would really appreciate it. And that's it for me.
I saw that, Margaret. Thank you for doing that. That was really awesome. And I did see you got a lot of engagement from the community, especially when it comes to
Lot. And
traffic.
yeah, and it's again a lot of stuff that we are already addressing and prioritizing. So I'm really happy about that.
Well, we do have that shared drive with the traffic spreadsheet. I can resend it out to everyone, but you can add those directly to that, Margaret, at
Okay,
any
that
time.
sounds
Like,
great.
yeah, so
I
I'll go
just
ahead
feel
and,
like it needs discussion though, and not lost, because there are some new ones that are probably need some immediate attention. So again, just I can put together a list of the new ones that we can possibly just discuss at our next
okay.
meeting.
Yeah, and then another one I was gonna mention, I think one of the intersections, a lot of them were talking about the repaving over off of Barnard and Oleander Street that we've already
Yes.
made. We made requests to repave and the lighting issue, especially off both of those streets. So that's, again, showing our good work that we're doing. We're staying on top of it. So
Yeah,
thank you again,
exactly.
Margaret, for doing that. I appreciate it. Any other non-agenda public comment?
I did
Alright.
have,
Oh, go
Mandy?
ahead, Nicole.
thanks. I just wanted to let all of you guys know, because we are all about improving our streets for safety. This Friday is in San Diego, we're doing well, Families for Safe Streets is a new chapter in San Diego. And they for safe streets. And there is a National World Day of Remembrance that is being done this Friday in San Diego at the Civic Center Plaza at 4:30. And there's quite a few, well, Mayor Gloria and there's about 4 council members that will be there as well. And people that have lost family members due to traffic violence. So just wanted to share that, as this is part of our conversations. So I appreciate all our work that we do here.
Awesome.
Nicole, is there a place where I can find that information to circulate?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw it in an email, and then you can circulate it to, I'll get it out there to you guys. You can also Google Bike Coalition, and they're it's right on there. And it's called World Day of Remembrance. So you can probably do that, and then they'll pull it right up. I'd share it in the chat, but I'm not very good at that.
I'll find it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone. If there's no other agenda comments, let's go ahead and move on to, oh, looks like Delana fell off. That's all right. Hi, Delana. Let's go ahead and move on to our action item, our first action item. The first one is a letter requesting stop signs to be installed at the intersections of Bolinas or Soto along the Voltaire Froud. This is something that's being requested by a community member. His name is Ben Leota. We all know about the Voltaire Froud corridor. We're very, I think we're all aware that there's some opportunities there. We're still waiting, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later when we talk about the CIP or the budget priorities for this next cycle that we'd like to approve and send on. Is that flashing beacon at Froud and Voltaire was listed in the last year's budget priority memo by our council member. And it's been removed, but we haven't received that traffic flashing beacon. And I know that there's been opposition in the past to a stop sign at that intersection. And so one of the big concerns is, as you go down Voltaire headed towards the beach, you descend down that hill, it creates speed as you go down. And so the neighbors, I received a total of 3 emails in addition to Ben's requesting that stop signs be installed along the Voltaire corridor in between. They mentioned Soto or Bolinas. Those specific streets. And so I'd like to open it up for discussion at this point. Oh, and another thing, I did reach out to Jeff Page about this, and he did state that he is supportive of our recommendation for stop signs at these locations. So I don't foresee this request, as long as it stays simplified, it should not generate any issues with other community members nearby.
Mandy, Paul has his hand up.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, if you look at the letter, it says Voltaire and Seaside or Bolinas. So I don't know if that was a typo on the second. So the stop sign installation request for Voltaire and Seaside and Bolinas. And then the letter, it says Bolinas or Soto. So I don't know what, how the Seaside got in there. I assume that it's not Seaside.
Yeah, that's a block in.
And bullion. Oh, should I say a stop sign along Voltaire?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, it says stop sign installation requested for Voltaire at Seaside or Bolinas, and then right below it, it says to put a stop sign on Voltaire from Bolinas or Soto. So those need to match whatever they're gonna be, I think.
Oh, you know what? Oh my gosh. I see what you're saying. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
sorry about that. That is a typo. Hold on.
But as far as a sign going in somewhere, it should go somewhere between Bolinas and, if Frau's gonna get some treatment, probably Bolinas and Seaside.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant to say.
I would tend to put it on the intersection that has the highest cross traffic, and that might be Gazoo, which is on the opposite side of the street, because none of the streets line up. So I would say if Soto or, any of them can work. And in fact, if you're walking, you might want to do Gazoo because it's a half a block away from Soto and Etowanda, I think it is. Seaside's probably too far down. And I don't know about Bolinas. It really doesn't, if you're walking, you would have to go across and then go left or right. If you're intending to just slow the traffic down, it can go anywhere. For whatever it's worth, it says there's a bus stop at Soto on one side, but maybe not on the other side. I don't know.
Go ahead, Delana.
I tend to agree with Paul. You could, what I would look for in putting a stop sign there, we're using it to slow down traffic, which back in the day, streets engineering did not approve of, but I think they've changed their philosophy now. I would select the street kind of further to the east, but where you can also talk about sightlines being inhibited, and actually Venice, because I tend to come down around Venice, and I don't know what's on the north side of where Venice is. There's a couple of streets. Mendocino might be one of them, but and that is where there's an actual bend on Voltaire to a straightaway. So I would look anywhere along, we're talking between Catalina and it sounds like Froud. So I would look at the intersection with Venice, and I would look at where the sight lines are, where when a car is stopped and they're turning to look either way, that they have the least amount of good view to be safe.
So I went back to my the map really quick. It is actually Soto or Bolinas. That's what should be the two streets. The other compromise that we could make is that we request that the city make the decision, anywhere between Ebers and Bolinas, we could, and then leave it up to their discretion depending on what side of the street. There's pros and cons to both sides. I know you mentioned Guizot. The only concern I have is there's another street right there that may cause some confusion. And the other issue is, I believe the Bolinas, it kind of ends up being really a three-way stop because, on the one side of the houses, they have garages that come right up to the sidewalk on the opposite side.
Right, you had the house there with the big 3-car garages. That's a good example of that. Right, we're across from Soto Street.
Yeah. And so those are some issues. So, we could, either keep it at those two intersections, or we could expand it to say, hey, look at it from Ebers all the way up to, look at that stretch potentially. Or I'm sorry, not even Ebers, like Froud up, sorry. We don't even need to go that far.
If you are looking at sight lines, which is a good point, I'm looking at Street View and I'm zooming down, and it looks like if you're choosing Soto, if you're trying to make a left from Soto onto Voltaire, there is kind of a hill coming towards you, so you don't have unlimited viewpoint. If somebody's driving at 40 miles an hour, you may have a problem getting out there, but that's just looking at Google Earth here, and I'm not sure if that's exactly correct.
I know Nicole had some more. Did you have some comments? Sorry. Oh, you're muted, Nicole.
Okay, thanks. So I did live on Soto for 25 years and know the street well. I cross it every day to go to OB Elementary and understand the traffic on Voltaire. I think you are best at traffic calming from Froud to Venice. I personally think there's some challenges with Venice as it's very close to Catalina. It gets backed up. I'm also know Gazeau is probably one of those other big turns that everybody's using. So Gazeau is like, can create that congestion when people are turning left or right or coming out. And then just that sight distance from Soto, it's much more visible to see from Soto Street than Bolinas. Bolinas is actually more blind than Soto, trying to come out and make a left. So I'm not sure of any stop signs on Voltaire personally in this segment, especially if we really are moving forward with something on Froud. As much as I want to see traffic calming and I want to see slower traffics, I'm not sure a stop sign to back up all those traffic is really the best choice. And so I would actually rather have a letter that talks about traffic calming from Froud to Venice. And so for my comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. I think in the end, we do talk about traffic calming at the end along the Froud in between Froud and Catalina, which would definitely cover that area in the letter. So it actually goes further from Froud all the way to Catalina. Would that be appropriate still? Again, I feel like more is best because again, it gives the city options with our request. And again, giving them a choice, this is something that, we can leave it up to the city, rather than we want it here, we want it this way.
Right, because they're going to come out and do studies and look at it and they're going to look at site and they're going to look at distances from Catalina and other improvements. And so really being more like, we just need support for traffic calming here.
I agree with you, Nicole, because we're seeing more and more stop signs pop up throughout Point Loma and Ocean Beach. And I think that's creating a ton of traffic right now as we drive around. So I completely agree with you.
However, I agree with Mandy that we need to be broader, because the city's not going to want us to just say, this is it, that's it. We want to give them options.
And the other issue is this is something that's being led by citizens in the area. And we've had pushback, we're still waiting on that beacon, and stop signs are a very cost-effective and easy way to kind of create a traffic calming. I know it's not ideal, but it's something that we can do in the meantime that can help put a stop. People come to a full stop at the top of the hill, and it will hopefully help them slow down as they start progressing back down the hill as they head towards Froud and OB. All of the stuff that we're requesting, we're still waiting on. And so I think that this would be a very cost-effective, along with asking the city to, make recommendations for traffic calming measures. I think that would be something that we could do to help support the community right now. It's a quick fix. It's not the best fix, but it's something that they're asking to help with the speeding, the cars that are, just cruising down that strip of the street with no regard. And I would like in the future, I would like to bring potentially the Froude and Voltaire intersection back specifically, again, you know, if we can get our entire board on board with something there at that intersection. I'm in that community a lot every day. I take my kids through that stretch. And I can't tell you how many times I've almost gotten T-boned. People are trying to cross over that Voltaire to get on towards West Point Loma. And it's just a very unsafe transit that could easily be fixed with a 4-way stop sign. So those are just my opinions. Thank you. Is there any other inputs? If not, I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter.
Can you clarify the letter if you are asking for specific stop signs on Voltaire?
I am, and I'm asking for it. I corrected it to be Soto and Bolinas.
Okay. I won't be able to support that at this time. Just, I'm just not comfortable putting a stop sign on another major corridor of, it's just, I like Paul says, Gazoo is probably more realistic.
Yeah, I won't be supporting it as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I also agree with Nicole on this.
So do you want to, so you're telling me you don't want to support any stop signs, you want to support the traffic calming though, correct?
I would, can you mention what kind of traffic calming you'd be talking about? Or what that might be? Are we talking speed humps or something?
I'm leaving that up
That
to
won't
the
happen.
city. I'm leaving it up to the city, and there will not be speed humps on that stretch because there's a fire department right there. Even with the mitigation to fit them, that is a main, that it doesn't meet the criteria based on the travel.
Well, I wouldn't
Hey,
be
just really
supportive of that,
quickly,
but I'm
really
wondering-
quickly, keep in mind that, you know, I know we keep using it loosely that we're leaving it up to the city, but neighbors are starting to ask for stuff as well in their neighborhoods, and they're a lot of times doing what those neighbors are requesting. So we have to be careful with that, with not leaving everything up to the city and really be direct in our ask.
I think of anything, I'd like to ask for the stop signs. We have neighbors asking for relief. That stretch is a dangerous stretch. We don't have any other mechanism available at this time to pause the traffic going down that hill. And so I don't know. I don't know what other mitigation you would recommend, Nicole, that would help that area.
You know, I would, I mean, there's other treatments that we can look at. It's, and I, you know, I understand that.
I hope
when
they're
you say-
not diverters. I just,
Oh, no, there's plenty of other options. The city's actually got a safety team and tries to look at different options, but when we put traffic calming, we're not going to get an immediate response. That's the problem. So if you want to add a stop sign for me to support it, I would say traffic calming with possible stop sign in between Froude and Catalina, and let them decide where that stop sign goes.
You know,
Because
like a flashing speed beacon or something.
Oh,
added.
we already have that though. That's already funded.
Not in that area, do we?
At Voltaire, and it's not there. It's funded and approved. It's just, we're waiting for it to be installed.
Okay. No.
Yeah. So I would accept, I think that would be an appropriate, again, giving the city, hey, you install the stop sign. What was the in between Froude and Catalina?
out in Venice,
Froude
Is
and,
the one-
yeah, we don't want it too close to count in between Froude and Venice. Okay. So instead of stating that, you would recommend changing the letter to advocate for the,
Mandy? Paul
yes.
has-
Yeah, I was going to say that if we're looking at trying to slow traffic down between Froude and Catalina, the halfway point is Bolinas. And I agree with that the Bolinas has a more of a problem when you're making a left turn off of Bolinas with vision. If I was to put it there, that would probably be where it should go. It should not be at Venice, because that's just too messy right there with that triple intersection. It's just really, I don't know how that would even work. You'd have to have like a 150-foot stop sign section there between by the Reunion all the way down to Venice or something. I don't know how you'd stop traffic at Venice going westbound. Traffic calming, I don't know. And maybe there is something could be done. I just don't know what it would be. And it is a through street. We just want to slow it down. And, pretty much once you leave that hill there, which is somewhere around, what is it, by Venice Street or a little past Venice, it's pretty much the same slope all the way down from there. It doesn't have a big hump. It's going down about 10 feet per block from what I'm seeing here. So,
Okay.
If we want to slow it down, I'd say Bolinas or Soto, I mean, I'll vote for it, but it may not pass.
Yeah. Delana, go ahead.
The one thing I want to question is when we say speed humps won't be included because it's a main corridor. I ride my bike up on the coast highway, and the way they've done their speed humps, and it is near intersections, is it's a little slope up, a flat, and then a little slope down. And a lot of times there'll be like a rumble strip. And since this is a residential area, I understand somebody might not want something that makes noise, but not all speed humps are created equal. I agree, we don't want something that's like a curb that you slow way down and crawl over and it jars everything in the car. But there are ways to make them where if you're at the reasonable 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, which a residential street should be, that they're not really bad. So I think giving the city options and say, including stop signs or speed bump, something might help. And I definitely hate having to add stop signs to the through streets. I understand, and I'm glad other people feel that same way. But again, not all speed bumps are like that little swath of asphalt strewn across the street that's really, really jarring. There are ways of making them not that intrusive, but where they slow the traffic down, that it's easy. So I agree, give the city some options. I used to live in that area. I used to use that intersection a lot. And because of all the offset streets, it is really difficult. A whole lot of OB, because it's old, is very difficult because it's old. It was never designed for what it currently is.
And thank you, Delana. They refer those to as speed tables. That's the new language, and that's more of a table. And if you look at it, we have it on, what is it, Venice or Santa Barbara, all the way down. So I don't have a problem with speed tables either. I think it just slows the traffic down and lets them keep going. And there are speed tables. There was just one that I saw over by Lincoln High School, and they actually have the placements where the fire truck goes, so they don't actually go over it. And it's like in the middle of the center of the lane and over on the kind of the yellow line. So cars aren't supposed to use it because it doesn't work for them, but it can work.
They have them in Liberty Station as well.
I know, but is there speed indexes with those though? About how fast the traffic is already zoned to move in that area?
There is, if we go to
I would think
the,
Voltaire might be a little bit too quick.
And are you basing that on the speed limit that it is currently, or is that a new, because we do now have in the California that you can reduce speed limits. So we
Right,
used
because I think it's what, 35 miles per hour on Voltaire, then they have to be reduced down to 25, I would think, right?
So maybe that's part of the request, right?
Right, I think that would be a point to look into the policy on that, yeah. Because that's my recollection when I had them installed on Albion Street, was a speed limit issue.
yeah, so it's 30 going down Voltaire. Maybe that could be the traffic calming, a speed reduction.
So just a little history on speed reductions.
Mhm.
So there used to be that the city traffic engineers would come out and do a traffic study or a speed study of the vehicles. And if the speed of those vehicles are going 35 miles per hour, if the 85th percentile are going that fast, that's how high the speed limit has to be in order to enforce it. So a lot of times when in the past, when we used to ask for speed limit reductions, it actually would bump it up because they couldn't enforce the speed until it was met that 85th percentile. That has recently changed in California legislation. Unfortunately, speed limits cannot be reduced until 2024. So that's when those you can lower speeds on streets, even though There are some jurisdictions that are actually doing it proactively, but legally they can do it as of 2024. So just a little history on that.
The one over at Liberty Station is kind of a crosswalk situation. And I ran up whatever the street is here, and I don't see a single stop sign, or not stop sign, I don't see a single speed limit sign all the way up from north and southbound on that street. The one that used to go by the Ace Hardware.
So looking at the form, just to follow up on that, yes, the max, it has to be 25 miles per hour or less. And it can't be and it also can't be a collector street or higher in the community plan circulation element. And that's another concern I have with it, because it's right there. And there's that fire station right there as well, right, at Ebers. So
Yeah.
I don't know about road hump, but I don't think there would be any harm if everyone's on board to request the speed reduction if you want to be very specific. Or
I just don't know how it's gonna be enforced unless the police start enforcing.
well, yeah, it's something nice to have on paper, but again,
Right.
Can we
Well,
please go with what Nicole suggested? I think that's fair and it captures your goal of the stop signs, but I'm happy to.
I'm fine
to
with it, but
support
I'd
that.
actually like to, going back, I looked at the map again, I would disagree with the Venice Street, that street with Mendocino on the other side, and how it that's a weird, I think that Bolinas is the board, that at the minimum, that's the street, or, further west.
So Paul, when you did your halfway point to Bolinas, what were you taking it from, Froud to Catalina or Evers to Catalina?
I was going from Catalina to Froud, and it looked like it was like 1,100 feet or nine, or
If we went to Evers, what's the middle point? More like Soto?
hold on a second, let me see if I can get over there again. I was
From
looking at something else. Go ahead and talk, I'll. see
The
what I
issue
can-
that I have is with the proximity of that intersection to Catalina. I feel like if we put a stop sign there, it's going to create a traffic jam of some sort there and confusion with that area.
Talking about Venice, right?
Yes.
I don't want a stop sign at all near Venice. So I'm gonna just clarify that. I'm thinking more Gazoo. Gazoo is a huge corridor where, that's actually kind of where we tend to, a lot of bikers turn to go into OB. They'll get off Voltaire quickly and just go through the neighborhood there. So
Well,
I would support a Gazoo.
Venice
well,
to
you
Froud.
have to go, we could do from Froud to Bolinas. I just worry that Venice Street, that's just not.
Why don't you give them the two choices? Bolinas.
Venice to Froud is
But-
1,400 feet,
Yeah,
and
but
halfway would roughly be Soto or Gazoo.
we don't want to create a Santa Barbara and Hill Street scenario in Catalina.
Yes, that's
either.
why.
And that could happen with Venice, Mendocino, and
Mhm.
crossing to the other side of Mendocino too.
So should we make the boundary in between Froud and Bolinas? Is that what we're asking? Or are we gonna ask again for Soto, Bolinas, or Guizot?
I would ask for one of those three.
Okay, all right, so we're going to, and then I just want to come back to the traffic calming. Do we keep it as is, or,
So your letter could read, traffic calming with options, vehicles, a stop sign at one of these three locations, and reducing the speed limit on the street.
okay. To consider units in between and install traffic calming measures such as a speed, and reduce the speed. Speed from to 25 miles per hour.
25, yeah. It's a neighborhood residential street, so that seems realistic.
Okay. Okay, so I've changed it to say the Peninsula Community Planning Board would advocate for the installation of a stop sign along Voltaire at Soto or Bolinas or Guizot. Additionally, the PCPB would request the City of San Diego Traffic and Transportation Department to consider reviewing the stretch of Voltaire in between Froud and Catalina and install traffic calming measures and reduce the speed to 25 miles per hour. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the letter.
I'll second it.
The
And then-
only,
Oh,
can
go
I
ahead,
just add a
Joanna.
little something?
Sure.
I agree, and I will support that motion. I think though, to support it is to put in that this is being requested by the community, not necessarily by us. And that it is for safety of the pedestrians and other vehicles, you know, that kind of thing, because they want to get to 0 traffic accidents and 0 this, that, and the other thing. So I would add a sentence or so about that, but yes, I support that motion.
I like that suggestion.
All right, the community,
I also like her suggestion. That makes sense to add a little bit more.
so the Peninsula Community Planning Board and local and community members. Okay,
Make maybe semicolon, however, we comma.
yeah. And, all right,
Can
they
I,
have been experiencing several.
You know, Mandy, I
Uh,
like my colons, but you know,
What did you say?
just teasing. You know
Oh,
me,
sorry.
semicolons. So semicolon, however, comma.
Oh, they have been experiencing highs.
You know, I just think that this is a collector street. And I don't think 25 miles an hour is going to be allowed on it. It's got a double yellow line. Residential streets are designed for 1500 ADT. This thing's got to have way more than that. I don't know what the ADT is for a collector street. I guess they have different calculations for them. I'm looking at them now.
I actually
Well, at
got,
least it's a start.
I actually got the ADT from Catalina to Chatsworth. It's only 8,000. You'd be surprised.
How many?
8,000.
8,000.
8,000. Well, a residential's 1,500 and is designed for 1,500. So,
1,500.
yes. And a collector, it says they have a 2-lane sub-collector. It's designed for 2,200. And then there's a 2-lane collector. It's designed for 5,000 in LOSC to 6,500 LOSD. So it seems like it may have more than, it doesn't have a 2-way turn lane that's designed for even more. I'm just looking at the city's information.
All right, well, thank you for that, Paul, I appreciate that. We do have a motion on the floor, so I first, Margaret seconded, I made the amendments to the letter.
Can I
Can I-
ask one point of clarification?
Sure,
So I know I said all 3, but I really want to take out Soto. I think the left turns onto Guizot and the traffic out of, I don't know. Actually, just leave it. It's fine. Don't think it's the best spot from being a resident there that long.
I think let's just leave it as is, because again, it gives the city options and it's part of what the original ask from the community is. So with that, I'd like to get a vote for this motion that we have on the floor.
I
Yeah, sure.
Raise your hand. All right, and then Delana's yes. Okay.
I'm driving, so I have to keep.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So that's
Traffic
unanimous.
measures to the fullest.
All right, awesome. All right, so that gets approved. And then the second letter, the second action item is, hold on one moment. Okay. All right, so we're gonna review the left turn at Nimitz and Rosecrans and request the city to review the intersection's operation and potential solutions. Now, this one, it was brought to our attention with Paul. So Paul, I'll have you present this item to the group and let me know if you need to screen share.
You're on mute.
Paul? You're muted.
I'm sorry, I muted myself for a couple of seconds ago. If you want me to go through I have some photos. I did send out a letter that maybe you all saw recently. It was out about an hour ago. And it talks about the left turn lanes, where they put the dual left turn lanes, and a couple of things that maybe could help flow of traffic without affecting any bike lanes or anything. So if you want me to start, let's see. I could start if you want to give me screen share. I'll go through, I think I can go through these one at a time.
All right.
So not on me, but on this other one, the one that has the PCPB logo on it.
All right, I got,
Oh, I have to hit screen share.
you can do it from yours, yeah.
Where do I hit, where do I hit screen share? I got to go to Zoom, right? Where the heck is Zoom? I got so many things going on my computer here. Not quite sure. Oh, here we go. Screen share, and then I'll put it on. Shoot, where is it? Where's the screen share on this thing?
Is it on the bottom middle portion of your
Oh,
screen?
screen share, yes. Okay, good. So let me go to these photos here. One thing is the McDonald's is over here, and when they added the extra lane, they widened the right side of Rosecrans, the northbound section, and they used to have one lane that you could make a left onto Keats or go through, where I got my pointer that goes up to the single turn pocket at Nimitz. And since that, they've done this. They've gone to a double turn lane up here at Nimitz.
Hey,
And there is,
I don't see your screen share.
shoot, what happened to it? Hold
Or
on.
maybe it's me.
Is anybody else seeing it?
No.
No, I'm not.
Shoot. Oh, I gotta hit share. Okay, how's that?
No. Oh, there it goes.
There you
Oh,
go.
you're
Okay.
good.
Yeah,
Let
got
me
it.
go back to the other one.
Sorry, I
Excuse
didn't mean
me.
to be a bummer in the
Uh,
summer.
Excuse
Yeah,
me, let me go
okay,
back to
got
the
it.
other one.
We can see it now.
How do I get this? Shoot.
Mhm.
Well, anyways, there was a single lane going up this way. They widened the street where my pointer is. So there is really enough room to put a second lane in here. They've got this big dart in here, and what's happening is cars are coming up, making a left onto Keats, and there's the cars wanting to make a left are having to come on Nimitz, or you're going to have to come up here. I see them all the time going across this barrier, this painted barrier. They could have two lanes here, a straight and a left, and a straight. It would fit, and really they don't need to do much to make that work. That was one of my suggestions, and now let me move to the next one if I can. Why can't I do that?
Actually, can you stay there for a minute, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just trying to figure out that as a driver, they want you to stay in that left turn lane for Keats to go into the left two arrows. You're saying there's not two travel lanes there next to the Sharrow? There's not another lane there?
There are two, there's a Sharrow, you can see the Sharrow, and there's a second lane there. So
Oh,
there's two lanes there. And then there's the darted thing in the middle. And then there's a lane that says left and straight. Now, a lot of people would be thinking they'll take that left lane and go all the way up to Nimitz. Well, if some guy's making a left to go to Ralph's or McDonald's or something or other, they will be waiting for traffic coming the other way. So I've seen them get behind someone and go around them over that white median that they've painted there. And I don't see a need for that. There is room to put another lane there so that people could make a left onto Keats or go straight. And then in the second lane, they would go straight into the Nimitz area. So
I guess I'm confused. It looks like 3 lanes already.
There are 3 lanes here. Here's lane 1, left lane. Here's the 2 travel lanes through, and there's this thing in the middle.
You want a total of 4 lanes?
Yes, I'd like 4 lanes there because there's 4 lanes up here.
Well-
It's the same sizing.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
So up here, if you go where my thing is, there's actually 4 lanes there. There's the same amount of space as there is down here. And people are getting trapped behind the left turners. Now, that's probably my least concerned one. So let me move over to, I think I'm gonna have to stop the screen share and go back out for my next deal. So let me go over to here and go to my next. That's not the next one. Okay, the next one, and if I go to Zoom, screen share. Okay. Share. Okay, this is the intersection itself with the new lane restriction merge, and people are making a double left turn here, going over, and I see them trying to merge while they're still in the intersection. This does not have to be as long of a space to restrict the flow down to one lane. I have no problem with it going down to 1 lane over here. I think it ought to move maybe a couple hundred feet. This dart that provides the buffer would just have to move down a little bit. It should be noted that whenever that left turn light is on there, there should be no bikes in these bike lanes because no one's probably making a left turn. I don't know if you'd be bold enough to get in the left turn lane with a bike and try to go that way. But probably if there's anybody going straight, that signal would be over and there'd be no conflict, in my opinion. So that is an issue with this particular thing here, asking for them to move this lane reduction up so that the merge could happen off the intersection. Because right now, a lot of it's starting to happen in the intersection.
And the Ralph's driveway kind of makes it worse too.
I'm sorry?
The Ralph's gas station.
Yes, that's a little bit of a problem too.
Makes it worse.
That's a problem too. I mean, you could be making a right and then trying to go into the gas station.
Yeah.
And of course, you'd have to go over the bike lane and this buffer to get in there. So that's my second thing. The third thing is that this traffic, the left turn lane, as you can see, is almost full on Nimitz going to Rosecrans. A lot of the time it backs up entirely past the whole capacity of it into the street. And what it does is there are people, and I'm gonna close this and go over to put another picture up. I guess that's the way I got to do it. Okay, here we go. Screen share. So this whole area where my pointer is can be totally backed up, and traffic is backed up over here onto the regular street. At this point, there's only 1 lane because they reduced the lane width, coming off of the turn. I've noted that at some times, people trying to go from Locust Street have to go across both these lanes because most of the people coming up to this intersection are making a left on Rosecrans. I mean, I went down there and sat there for like 2 times for at least 20 or 30 minutes. So these cars are coming across. Sometimes they come halfway across and like block the road to do it. My suggestion is that at the intersection of Rosecrans, that they could do what they do over at West Point Loma and Midway, which is the traffic goes green for one direction only, and then the other direction goes green. So what that would do is the middle lane here would be a choice lane for a left or a straight. So it would take all these cars that are backed up and put half of them in this other lane. When the lane came up, they could all move left turn and they'd move a lot faster. And the through people already have a lane on top of it. They don't need 2 lanes when the left turn is so backed up. That would prevent this problem with people coming off Locust who'd be able to turn into the middle lane instead of going all the way across the road, which more than likely wouldn't be backed up anymore. Because of the backup over here, if they don't do that, then I'd suggest that they do something to turn it back to 2 lanes somewhere back in here. Because cars are going straight across where my pointer is, straight across this thing here and into the bike lane and up here, because there's nowhere else to go when a car is backed up and parked in the middle of the road. So that's the main crux of my position here. I think this would work, and I think it would probably work better with traffic. These are very low cost things to do. And in one case, it would be paint. In another case, these traffic signals, you're talking, telling the city, they've already got computers on this intersection. You just tell it, you are forced to make a straight across, straight and a left at the same time for both directions. It would also help the other direction because there's a small turn pocket over there and people get backed up and can't even get into the turn pocket. So they got to wait for 2 cycles to get through to make a left turn. So that's what I see. I'm not touching at all the thing about the bike lane down on the next street. At this point, I don't see that as being part of this. But that whole design probably brought some of this on. It brought on the lane reductions on both sides that created the problem with the left turns off Rosecrans on the Nimitz, and also created the problem with the people having to go over these buffer and dash lanes when traffic is backed up in a left turn lane. I've seen cars back all the way up here trying to get in the left turn lane. So I'm assuming the green light stays on longer to push them through, which means that there's less flow through the intersection. If the middle turn was the left turn lane as well, they'd move more traffic. So that's the crux of my deal here.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Did you want to remove your screen sharing so that we
I
can
sure will.
everything? And then
Wait, I gotta go to this one. Yeah. Hold
thank
on.
you, Paul, for doing that.
Yeah.
I went through the letter. I know that this area, with the arrows and the lane reduction, especially in front of the gas station at Rosecrans and Nimitz, it's been a conversation as well, being that it doesn't impact the bike lanes and design as far as I know, and we're not asking to remove that. I'd like to open it up for discussion for the other group members to provide their inputs.
So I'm happy to chime in because that's right around our neck of the woods, and my wife and I are there basically every day. The first two basically agree with the recommendations pretty completely. They look pretty good. My only thought in the last thing you proposed is that straight lane never has much volume. You're sitting in that giant left watching like nobody going straight. And I would say you could probably just do 2 lefts if they wanted to do that. Then you don't have this weird 1 lane turns into 2 straight lanes and people are choosing what they're doing. And there's enough room to catch up the whole traffic volume, and they don't have to change the light pattern if they don't want to. I think you could do a left to left straight at that intersection without causing any trouble.
Go ahead, Paul.
May I just say that I kind of agree with you, but I was down there and counted, and I don't think that it's mostly left turning traffic. They would have to do a traffic study to, I think, determine what the volumes were. I know at certain times of the day, most people are making that left turn, and maybe that would work just fine. And it would allow the traffic signals to operate the way they do now. They would probably change a little bit because, well, the machine would not see as many cars in the lane, so we would be able to turn the green off quicker. That would probably be better than what we have now. I'm not sure if that's better than looking at the volume at both sides. You also got right turning traffic coming down the lane that is added to the straight traffic. So I think they'd have to do a traffic count maybe over 24 hours or over at least a weekday. But that's a good observation.
Is there an opportunity to reduce that left-hand turn off Rosecrans, from 2 to 1? And then it would also kind of remove the confusion. I don't know if the amount of traffic would back up, but.
Which one are you talking about?
If you're on Nimitz heading eastbound, or sorry, no, you're on Rosecrans, sorry, headed eastbound, and you're making that left at the intersection of Nimitz and Rosecrans. And then when you make that left, there's the 2 left turns. Well, the problem is that far right left turn lane, So if we reduced it to 1 turn lane, it would reduce that confusion as well. But I don't know.
That was added into part of the it was a final thing spent on the NTC rework. And the money was sitting there forever and they finally got around to doing it. So I don't think it's going to go away. They spent, a bunch of money and they actually widened Rosecrans on the east side to do that. I don't think that's going away.
That would go, okay.
What they really did was there was 2 lanes all the way down Nimitz and the turns were going properly. The 2 lanes turning into 2 lanes. And then when the thing came around with them bulbing out at Nimitz and Lowell Street and Evergreen, they decided to restrict it down to 1 lane. I'm just saying they restricted it too early. I don't think there's a reason to restrict it so, almost immediately at the intersection when you're running, like a full load of double lanes of cars. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Nicole.
thanks. So, yeah, on that double left turn off Rosecrans, that was kind of a bummer because we did look at that as Peninsula Planning Group and we were like, none of us were in favor of it. We were like, take the $3 million and put it to something else. But it was just part of the Liberty Station mitigation. So
Okay.
that's kind of unfortunate. I'm going to say, as somebody who, congestion is just going to continue because we have a lot of traffic. So like we are just, we're trying to relieve congestion here to make it go faster. And then when it goes faster, then we want a stop sign. And then, we really have to eliminate some of our traffic. And the space that we've dedicated for bikes is important and valuable to a lot of folks that ride bikes. And so, the 4 lanes on, the first proposal is the 4 lanes on Rosecrans, which I cannot support because I am, as a bike rider, those folks are sheros in a 40-mile-an-hour corridor. It's totally unsafe. So if you're going to provide another lane, it should be for people riding bikes. I'm sorry that congestion is here. I'm sorry that it's a problem, but the drivers need to slow down and be patient and understand that they are in traffic. And that is going to be a result of our car-centric culture. And the more people we add into our city and the more, this is the limited space that we have. And so the more people we can get out of their cars is going to be better. The second one was reducing that conflict area at the gas station and up there, those, to me, when I hear you say, okay, the drivers are driving in the bike lane, the buffered bike lane and over these dash lines, as long as they're doing it and they understand that that's a bike lane and that they're understanding that there's no biker there and they can use it, that to me is okay. And I'd rather have them slow down and merge appropriately if they have to use that space. But I don't want to give them that extra space because they will end up just creeping up a little farther and using that space up a little farther. So the space is there to provide protection for people that are outside of their cars. And I really want to be mindful that we don't take away that space. And then that last one on the left turns onto Nimitz or onto Rosecrans, that's just a high volume area again. And as a bike rider, it's horrible. So I want to go straight. I have to be in a right turn only lane. The straight lane is the only middle one. So now you want to put left turns in there. I don't necessarily mind that if you want to have a left turn straight, but I can't advocate for that to be 2 left turns and the right turn be straight only, because that right turn also gets backed up, making right turns there and pedestrians crossing keeps it backed up. So you need that middle lane to stay straight through. So that third one where you're talking about 2 left is probably the only recommendation I can support in those recommendations.
Thank you, Nicole. I agree, Nicole, you're a bike advocate and, we've done a lot of changes to that area over there recently. But as a driver and a cyclist, I have to say, just because you're in a car, there still needs to be a safety element. And I think there's an opportunity at some point, because what we're witnessing is that the cars are being kept and in the intersection, and it's creating an unsafe situation. It's not necessarily where speeding's involved, It's just that merge is so close to the intersection, it just creates that backup. And that's why I believe Paul is wanting to move it down so that we don't crowd that intersection with everything else going on there.
Are we reducing congestion or are we making it safer? Because I don't know if we're making it safer. How many collisions are happening because of this is what I'd like to know.
Oh, that's a good question. Paul, have you been able to look at any
I
traffic
don't know if there's been
data?
any collisions there. I mean, I've been down there and seen the cars kind of weave and slow down to get in there.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bike that's been driving down the lane that's right next to it while those people are making a left turn, because if most of them are probably making a through movement, and that through movement would have a red light. If they're making a right turn off of Rosecrans onto Nimitz at that location, they would have to yield to the traffic. And I think it would be pretty stupid if they're going to make a right turn while there's 2 lanes of traffic coming right at you, even though you got like 5 feet of bike lane or whatever it is. You know, everybody's got to be aware of safety situations. Regarding that,
I do go to Liberty Station off Nimitz, and I do use that left turn lane to make a left. So now you're asking bikers to merge over 3 traffic lanes, which is they still have to do. So
I'm sorry, I don't know exactly where you're talking.
I mean,
If you could
bikers
tell
are
me.
making left turn lanes all the time through that intersection. So we're not going to deny that because there are people biking, and that's actually
Nicole, what area are you talking about?
I'd love to see you on a left turn. Have you taken a left turn lane on Nimitz going into that intersection, the one with the backed up lane? You're
correct.
in there with a bike?
Correct.
Wow.
I'm making a left onto Rosecrans because I need to get to Liberty Station. And so I make a left there. I'm not going straight through and then
Right.
I'm talking about the straight through going the other direction to where you're making a left from going towards Liberty Station. You decide to make a left onto Nimitz. And
Correct.
that's where they've restricted it down to taking the 2 lanes immediately down to 1 lane. And that I'm saying that I don't think anybody's in that right turn lane or in that bike lane at that time. Now, are you in the second left turn lane coming up across from the Ralphs, making a left onto Nimitz?
Correct.
If you are, it shouldn't make any difference because you're going to be way over on the right side anyways. And, you know, you're going to have your lane over there.
Yeah.
I don't see how forcing people to merge immediately.
That was
in
my
there-
question also.
I'm sorry.
It's actually talking from Nimitz onto Rose. So that left turn,
From Rosecrans
The
by
single lane.
Nimitz to Rosecrans.
the Ralphs.
Correct.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've ridden bikes. I would never try to get on that lane. Unless there was nobody in it. I don't know how else you go. If you go, you know, back a couple of streets and cross over Rosecrans somewhere else, I don't know. Or you go, it's tough. It's tough as a bike rider, but that's like, you're really throwing it out there.
We have a hand up.
All right, we have Delana first and then Pat, you're next. So thank you. Go ahead, Delana.
First of all, for discussion purposes, I think Paul put forward 3 totally separate issues.
Right.
And we should divide them and say, let's discuss issue 1, get done with it, go to issue 2, get done with it, and go to issue 3. That's number 1, because I hear everybody saying, which one are you talking about? And number 2, I'll put my bike riding mileage up against anybody's. First of all, I can't remember the last time I rode a bike through that intersection because, as somebody else just said, there's always ways around it. And second of all, making a left-hand turn, if there's more than 1 lane doing something, cyclists should be smart enough to pretend they're pedestrians. You cross straight, you stop at the corner, and then you cross again instead of crossing all these lines, and that makes it easier. But I would like to see, because even on Paul's first one, I have issues with what he brought up, but if we could divide this into, let's discuss issue 1 and finish it and then move along. I think we would be more efficient in this discussion.
Thank you, Delana. So I'm totally fine with that. I think we were wrapping up the discussion anyways, so if that would piece Paul's ask, and then we can parse it out. So there's 4 parts to the letter.
Mandy,
Actually, the fourth part was just the extension of the third
It's
part.
just the third.
basically-
All right, so let's go
basically
through
saying
the
if you didn't-
first.
If, yeah,
Paul, since it's your letter, I mean, you can lead with the motions, I guess, and then we'll follow suit if that's what you'd like to
people
do.
want to make comments.
Say that again.
There's a couple people that want to make.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Did I skip you, Pat? I'm sorry if I skipped over you.
muted.
Well, I also am having the problem of too many different proposals that we're working through here. First, if there's a copy of this letter, there's like a link somewhere someone could put in the chat. That'd be nice because I'm working from just my memory of what you showed in screen share. And then with that said, I think it'd be most useful, not necessarily motions or anything, but work through each of the 3 things you talked about in turn, and then we can go around to anything formal about what the letter states or what have you.
Yeah.
That would, and most of my comments have to do with the third one, so I'll shut up until we're ready to work
Paul,
through
can
the
you
3
put it
things.
in the chat?
I can I put a link in the chat or put the, I can put the text in the chat, yeah.
Hold on, let me
I'll
see
put
if I
the 4 versions in the chat.
Here it is.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me go
I
back
actually
to-
think I can put it in there.
Just making sure he gets heard. I think he's the only person that raised their hand that didn't get heard.
All right, is there anyone else that needed to speak? Sorry, thank you for keeping me on, Tina, keeping me straight. All right.
Anybody else? That we
Oh,
missed? Comments,
Hold on.
concerns?
Sorry, I have a question. Paul, this is for you. Can you sum up exactly what you're proposing we take action on in a nutshell? Because the back and forth and so many people talking at once, I lost sight of what your
Well,
mission is.
Yeah, basically it is probably 3 different items. And the first one was just to add a extra lane in front of the McDonald's on people that were gonna go up to Nimitz and make a left turn, because people are now going around and having to go around cars that they're blocking at Keats.
Okay.
That's one item. That the main, let's see, what was the second item? I got it. The second item is the left turn where the lane reduction, I believe, happens too abruptly, and that it could be moved down like 50 feet or something. And it'd probably make a huge difference, and we might not even have crashes, or the flow of traffic would move at a better rate, which means that the whole intersection, which is probably one of the worst ones in the city, could have better flow. And the third one was the adding of a middle turn lane. And I had figured that by doing that, you would just what they call splitting the phase, which means you'd be going green for left and straight for the eastbound section, and then a different time you go left and straight for the westbound section. But if 2 lanes would work, as I think it was Pat was mentioning, if 2 lanes would work with a traffic study and they both be left lanes, that would be fine with me, because it would, I'm sure, move more traffic and leave the system able to make the best choices, because it's run by a computerized system. So that's
Okay.
basically the crux of it.
Okay, that makes sense. That's down to the nutshell with those 3 forms of action. I do see what Delana was saying as far as breaking it all down, but I do think this is pretty to the point. Are you going to be making a motion that we send a letter out touching base on these items, or are we breaking these down separately into 3 separate letters?
all right, I just got the letter and I put it in the chat for everyone to reference.
I
so-
appreciate that.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
mean, I'll leave that up to
Sorry.
Mandy as far as what she thinks. And obviously I would not want the letter to go down if possible. If it needs to be broken up or one of them needs to be taken out or something, that's okay with me. I'm willing to take this to the city on my own and see if they would see what I'm talking about as well. It'd be much better if it came from the group, to be honest with you.
I'd like to see it come through this group, because that's what this group is for. And you really did put some time and energy into this. So I'd like to move forward and take action and support a letter that addresses these 3 items.
If there's any discussion to change the items or the way it's written, or anybody has a chance to get to it later and get back to me or to Mandy, we can adjust it. I mean,
I'm willing to support that as well.
Yeah, I would agree with Margaret. I'm supportive of this letter in its entirety unless there's something specific that needs to be removed or reworded. I'd like to hear that. And then Pat, did you get the letter link? I put it in the chat. Did you get it?
I did not see any links in the chat. Did you see my message?
There's no, you guys don't see a file in the chat?
I'd only see his message that we don't see the link, and I agree. I concur.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's showing it here. I don't know if it's.
It could be if you're dropping the actual file, not all Zoom clients support attachments. It's got to just be.
Okay.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm on my iPad right now, so I won't see.
All right,
files.
I'll share the screen and show it to
okay, I
everyone.
just put it in the chat. I put the 4 bullets in the chat.
All right, here's the letter too. So I'll kind of scroll down just to the meat and potatoes.
Oh, on the first, number 1, you know how wide those dashed lines are that you're asking for another travel lane?
Do I know how long the dashed lines are?
How wide?
How wide, which dashed, are you talking, what do you,
For a four-
well, that would be for them to figure. I just probably know that it's gonna fit. I mean,
I cannot support.
they could be pretty standard. They fit the same width up at Nimitz itself. If you look at a picture of it, you'll see that Nimitz has 4 lanes right there. So this would just pull it back farther. And I think the width of the road is the same back there.
Trying to picture it,
I
that
mean-
actively widens. I mean, it's a block away. I can go measure it right now, but I'd be a little worried that whether you could actually fit it. I think there's definitely room for a bike lane, especially on the right side where it's currently sharrows and kind of terrifying. And that's on my commute. So if we're talking about widening that thing, adding another turn lane is not what makes sense to me there.
Well, part of it is that if you look at the double yellow that's there, there's a split double yellow by the McDonald's now, where in the past it was a single double yellow. So if you're heading down
Oh,
that
yeah.
lane, they've moved you further to the right from where you were before by about 3 feet. So you've got 3 feet there, and you've got the median that's painted makes up probably almost the equivalent of a lane. And there's extra room, I think, if you were to measure this lane at that point from the curb, and the last lane is 19 feet as far as what I can see, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, with that yellow
That's
median.
a lot
you've got
more
enough
than
room.
what you need. It's 17 feet farther down. It widens out, but it's plenty wide. It's probably almost wide enough to put a bike lane in down from across. Well, this is an old.
I agree. I think a bike lane would definitely fit.
Excuse me. I'm looking at the old version, and unfortunately, I have to look at the new one on Google. I'm sorry. I'll look and see what I can find on the new one.
Yes, I would definitely want to support a bike lane over a extra travel lane.
Same.
With
Remember- We have to remember that Rosecrans, just maybe 3/4 mile to the west, is only 1 lane. So we have to realize that as soon as you add extra lanes, traffic is just going to go faster. And I want to say we had a fatality there last year, right in front of Better Buzz or on that side over there. So, we talk about getting people across Rosecrans, and now we're going to add a 4th lane of traffic. It makes no sense.
There's already a 4th lane there on the next block for left turns. And those
But
two 4 lanes add up to 21 feet. And if you go back, I'm on Google, and you go from the double yellow where they used to start and go across, if you go to the side of the marked thing, it's 20 feet. And
Okay,
then on top of that, if you look at how much room is left in the far right lane, and the far right lane is 16 feet, which is, way more than what it's required to be. I know that there's no bike lane. Like on the other side of the street, it's roughly 15 feet that I can see from the curb to the center lane, to the center markers, and that includes a bike lane. So 16 on the other side could put a bike lane in there. Or 15, if it was 15. It does widen out there because that was what they spent money on. And bike lanes are not,
Okay.
in fact, the bike lane does not start. It dies it right there at whatever that second street is, not Keats, but the next one up.
Yeah, it's Jarvis.
Right, so I've got Delana here, so I think in the essence of time, and we've been talking about this, we either need to approve the letter as a whole with friendly amendments, or we need to piece out each item with a vote, and then we can parse out the request if that's to your liking, but I think
Did I
we've
get
got
a
enough.
second on my vote? I mean, on my motion?
Say that again, Margaret?
Sorry, did I get a
Are those
second
shifts?
on my motion?
I don't know, did someone? I didn't hear that, I'm sorry, Margaret. So Margaret, you made a motion to approve the
Yes.
letter as is?
Yes.
All right, I will second that. I'm gonna stop the screen share.
Okay,
Is there,
who wants to talk?
go ahead, Pat.
My knowledge of parliamentary procedure here is limited, but can I suggest an amendment that says for bullet point 1, in addition to the second left turn lane where I think you have room, finish the bike lane down to Jarvis so that it mirrors what happens on the other side of the street.
Makes sense.
Can you put that in the chat for me? I would accept, I think that would be a friendly amendment. Margaret, would you accept that friendly amendment?
Excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I really appreciate your participation on this board. I hope you make it official and maybe become a community member in the future. That would be awesome. Yeah, if you put that in the chat, I can amend that and add that to the letter. That would be appreciated. So we've got a motion. Margaret first, Mandy seconded. We have a friendly amendment that we're going to add to point 1 to add to continue the bike lane to Jarvis to match the other side of the street. We're going to add that to the point 1 of the letter. All in favor, raise your hand.
Margaret,
Pat's getting practice, right? Yeah, in spirit, but what about Delana? Yes, no?
Because I have issues with parts of it, I'm not going to support this as a whole.
Okay, all right, thank you. So 6-1, pass, Delana.
6-2.
Andy.
or-
I'm a nay. I did
Oh,
not.
you are a nay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Nicole. Sorry. 5-6.
Nicole didn't vote.
5-2. All right, it
You
passes.
forgot to ask for the nays or the abstentions. You only asked for the in favors.
Thank you, everyone, for keeping me on. Sorry, on
Thank you.
point. So abstains, loud and proud. Who's abstaining? Nicole, Delana, right? Any
No.
abstent?
No, I'm not.
No,
a
you don't,
Opposed.
they're not
I'm a
voting.
no.
They're
no.
no's. They're no's. No abstentions.
it
5
still passes.
yeses.
You're good.
All right, thank you. Moving on. Action item number 3. We have, this one is our request to look through the letter that long range planning had gone through and to make any additional recommendations for our budget priority, our budget priorities for our district. So I'll open up the floor. Actually, before I open up the floor, I did want to bring something that had come to my attention. Corla had emailed me about one of her recommendations, and I wanted to bring it up because I do think it's important, is the street sweeping in our area, to put that as a priority for funding so that they maintain the street sweeping and the intervals in our community. That's one recommendation that she had asked to put on the list with regards to traffic. I'd like to open up the floor to others who would like to make their recommendations. Paul?
Yeah, I would just like to say about the street sweeping that Corla and I have been working with the city in different fashion to try to find out what's going on with the street sweeping. As you recall, when Dr. Jen was at the last board meeting, I think before the election, she said that there were a bunch of changes coming to the street sweeping. I could not find them on the city site. I could not find them anywhere. And you go onto the city site and they have this tool where you can look at everything. I looked at virtually every street in the Peninsula area, and there were no upcoming changes to any of them. Most of them are not signed. There's numerous areas where we have, like 95% parking all the time. The street sweeper never gets there, especially over in the area by, Barnard Street and Warden. And all of these are near the slough where water may be going and pulling dirt into the slough or into the ocean. It's interesting that Pacific Beach has almost all of their streets are signed, and they have like double the service that we do over here. And I don't quite get it as far as what that is. I don't know if a previous city council member, who knows how many years ago, did it. Right now, we're using a 2015 street sweeping schedule. It hasn't been moved up in 7 years. They're trying. And I was told by one lady on the phone that in Point Loma or the whole peninsula, they were changing one route by just changing the day of that route. So it was going to operate every other month on like a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday. Well, that's nothing that's going to help us here. It's just sad when you see these street sweepers going down the middle of the street because they can't get to the curb, and they now want to up the charge of tickets from $68 to something else, and it's all funded by water and sewer because they want to keep stuff out of the bay. So your water rates are paying for the street sweeping along with the tickets. They can do better. I don't know what it's going to take to get some of these areas with high occupancy vehicles parked actually signed, and then the city can make money by ticketing people and then throwing that back into the fund to pay for more street sweeping. So that's, I totally agree with Corla on that.
So what I did is I went into the budget memo that she had released on September 30th, and I just copied and pasted what she had listed. And so we can put that as a friendly amendment if we all agree upon it in a future, once we make a vote for it. I've also added the Froude and Voltaire flashing beacon. I'd just like to push that up to the ask. And the only reason that one sticks out is she had that listed in her priority memo budget last year, and it's not listed in this year. And so it's still not there. And I don't want to forget about that. And so I recommended that, as well as another opportunity could be for more tree planting along the right of way. Trees are a natural traffic calming mitigation, and as well as the impact that they have to our environment, there's an opportunity for them to expand funding in tree planting. Those are just one of my asks that I put on there, and we can go through that. Go ahead, Delana.
My priorities would be street servicing, especially anything that's designated as a bike route or bike lane, bike route. If you ever ride your bike on Bacon Street, which in Ocean Beach is our main designated bicycle route to get to Robb Field, to get to the bike path along the San Diego River, to get anywhere else in the city. And you have to ride in the middle of the street and do like a traffic obstacle course to avoid. And then you have the cars honking at you and trying to go around you, but you can't, you have to avoid the potholes and everything. So I would put a priority on street repairs, street fixing, repaving, etc. And then I'm going to go back and add a yes to the street sweeping. Our whole OB Peninsula area seems to be highly neglected, and yet we're one of the closest communities to the ocean, and we get less good street sweeping than anybody else. So those would be my priorities.
I like that. So you're saying to make the bike routes or bike boulevards in our Peninsula neighborhood to take priority with regards to street repairs, street resurfacing, and any servicing that may needed to ensure that they're
Yes, to
Cyclable.
make it safer for the cyclists, which then makes it better for the drivers.
Yep.
I have a question for you, Mandy. Are you still attending some of those Sunset Cliffs meetings? Because I know I'm seeing quite a bit of kicking and screaming in that neighborhood, which is part of our community as well, in regards to those roads being safe for cyclists and just the cliffs in general. I don't know if there's a budget to include them in this proposal, but I'd like to see some attention given that way to those roads.
Well, that is listed as far as those roads. If it's a bike boulevard, this one is specific to bike boulevard, but for Sunset Cliffs, I don't know of any anything big other than the
I just hear that the traffic just keeps growing there, and it's impossible for cyclists to get around in that area now. And I think I was reading that, I don't know, that what had something to do with like the parking lot and the bike lanes. Not doing its
the
job with
parking
the
lots
parking
are being
lots.
closed at night, and so that's happening right now. The city, if you've been over there, they've put out the signage to alert the public that they're going to start closing the parking lots. I believe it's from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. that they ultimately decided upon, but that's going down. But as far as mitigation requests to that neighborhood, yes, there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of noisy neighbors. There hasn't been any specific ask for that neighborhood in a while outside of what we've already advocated for the park. If we did ask for things, I mean, we could up more support for Sunset Cliffs, and that natural asset, because it is an asset to our community, and there are opportunities to have, more protection and oversight of that area, for sure.
Well, maybe we can ask for additional support when they demo those two homes and they continue with the project down there, because that all kind of fits in hand to hand.
With the demo in the park?
Well, the two homes the city owns down there, that
Yeah,
are going to be demoed to continue with the park expansion.
yes.
So maybe something could be done concurrently with that whenever that's scheduled.
I don't know what that would have to do with
I don't know,
parks
but
or,
that's like a $2 million project to get rid of those homes.
yeah. And Delana, when I haven't been in those meetings in the last few months, just with my other things happening. Is there any conversation about any big projects that we could potentially support?
You sort of covered it on the parking lot closure issue, and as far as I was aware, that's still going before Coastal Commission. I was at the last meeting last Monday night. But really, the only thing really anybody keeps asking for down there is just traffic enforcement. The number one problem is speed, and then the drug and alcohol use along the park, which the only traffic thing there is the inebriated drivers getting back on the road, but just pure traffic enforcement. And that's what we've asked for. So I appreciate people that say, let's help us out. Thank you very much.
Why do they stop unlocking? They used to lock the gate every night. When did that stop? About 4 or 5 years ago?
No, actually,
It's
what came out at
happening.
this meeting is about, I'm gonna say 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. The city has actually hired a new company that apparently does go and close that parking lot gate. I forget what time it closes. I forget what time it opens, but the people that live closest to it and watch it say that it's been really regular. And the meeting was last Monday night, the first Monday in November. And the person who brought that issue up said that the meeting had been, or that he had been noticing the regular gate locking and unlocking for about a week and a half or so. And then the park guy, Vince, spoke up and said that, yeah, the city had hired a new vendor to take care of those gates. And he was happy to hear that they were being used, being tended to regularly. So that's what came about that. There was a little bit of discussion on if you put gates on the actual parking lots, 1, 2, 3, and 4, starting at or just south of Adair Street to just north of Froud Street, what that will do then to the other streets in the neighborhood. And I'm going to be really honest with you, unless you put a 12-inch berm along the curb line, putting gates at those driveways isn't going to do anything, because 90% of the cars that park in those parking lots will just come in and drive over the curb. It's not going to affect anything other than allowing officers to go in and write tickets, which, again, good luck on all of that. So.
Well, thank you, Delana, for that update. I appreciate that. Nicole?
Thanks, Mandy. And there's a lot to discuss here. So Sunset Cliffs is a whole entirely separate issue, or an issue in itself, right? So looking at that letter, I personally would like to take the approach of what has been vetted and what we've actually already submitted letters in, what projects already have project IDs, and anything that is supportive in her budget letter that we actually want to support. So looking at your list, Chatsworth and Plumosa has a project ID number, and we sent a letter in on 9/29/22. I totally support that one. Cannon Street Market Park also has a project number. We sent a letter in as a community planning board on 9/20/21. So that's something I can see on this letter. The Nimitz and Evergreen was identified on 1/18/18 in our letter as 5 dangerous intersections, and that I support as being on that letter. Sunset Cliffs that you're talking about, the letter to look for funding for a linear park. I'm going to ask, is there a letter from Sunset Cliffs? And you know, Nancy, I mean, if there is like an actual plan with a project ID or specifics, not, I mean, I hear traffic enforcement and I hear some other things, but unless there's something significant that we're really identifying that's in a letter that we've already vetted, then I would actually probably reconsider that.
I would like to keep that one on, because we have the past letter, we asked for funding with regard to their drainage project. That was just within the last 6 months, we approved that letter. And then there are other letters with regards to like the enforcement and support of the park. So that would be appropriate.
But I think including these letters is important. So, a couple additions. We've talked about Nimitz and I-8 for probably 10 years. We have multiple letters, but the latest one was on 11/29/21. I'd also like to identify Catalina Hill and Santa Barbara that we as a group identified 11/29/21. Scott Street was identified on 11/4/21. And Voltaire, which you've also identified, Voltaire and Froud, which was a letter written on 1/18/18, which I believe also has a project ID. So I'd add those 4 projects. And then the 2 that I would remove because they have not been vetted completely is the streetlight repairs. I'd like to get a better, I know we listed some in Loma Portal, but I don't think that's doing an inclusive look at what really needs to be done. If we want to ask for some funding for lighting's already going to be funded in the general budget. I think we have an opportunity in the next 2 or 3 months to come back and look at what we'd like to see as far as slight streetlight repairs. And then until Rosecrans and Nimitz gets to be completely voted on, that one has not been vetted completely as well. So those would be my suggestions on that letter and improvements.
Thank you.
Mandy?
Yes.
I'd like to just comment, and I really want to keep the lighting on there, because we have received, I mean, so many emails, and I've been copied on so many emails with all the lighting issue that we have throughout Point Loma. It's ridiculous. People have been waiting for months around Loma Portal. Their lights have been out. I've been copied on all those emails. I think I sent you a bunch of emails as well.
Yes,
And that is a very important one for a plethora of reasons.
I would
mean,
like to keep it on, and the reason why I say that is, I am working on the OB Town Council's advocacy subcommittee, and we are taking up that issue at the beginning of the year, and we're wanting to partner with other community stakeholders with that. I agree with Nicole that yes, we need to make an inventory of where those lights are out and where we need to prioritize that. But I believe that information is available. I believe Makaka Rowan is he's on staff with Jen Campbell, and he was the point of contact with the lighting requests in the last 6 months. So he has a list of those locations that
but I
he's
don't want-
maintaining that he can provide us. But
I don't
agree-
want to depend on, as Nicole said, oh, it's in the budget and this and that. There's tons of things in the budget. And we all know that those budgets, I mean, get earmarked for other different things in our community. So we, again, have to be specific and stern in really notating that in our ask.
I agree with you. Maybe there's an opportunity here to, again, make it a priority because it is a big issue. And then we can come back to it in the future and maybe see if there's some opportunities going, looking at that list. Maybe we can make some recommendations of, oh, here's where we're hearing, this neighborhood is dark or this neighborhood is wanting stuff. But again, I agree with you, Margaret. Let's
I'm
add
just
it.
tired of, sitting on this planning board for 4 some plus years. And all I keep hearing is it's earmarked for this. There's a budget for that. Where is this budget? Because things aren't getting done. Yes, it's on paper. Hold on a sec. Let me just finish. It's on paper, but we really need to be specific and push for the items we want in our community. I don't care if it's budgeted and on paper. I want to see some of this money be used for issues. And I'm just tired of people waiting and neighbors complaining. And, we're not getting the funding that they're saying is supposed to be used in our community.
I agree with you, Margaret.
So
It is frustrating.
Discussions at the city level about streetlights. There's a huge backlog. They also have a very, very low staff. They actually have a very, very difficult time hiring staff at the city. In any excuses, but the best thing you can do for a street light outage is put it on, get it done. Because when you call up to office, guess what they do? They put it.
They're doing that, Nicole. And at this point, we need to hold them accountable with our ask. Seriously, our budgets are getting taken away for other things. And I know exactly what's going on, and I don't like it.
Thank you, Margaret. I agree with Margaret on that. And I mean, we can go down the list too as well. Nicole, you bring up very valid points. But again, the frustration is, I can see it with Margaret too, as long as I've been here, on the planning board, which is now a full 4 years, I've been, things have been promised and put in budget memos and they're not coming to fruition. So I definitely get the frustration.
Yeah, the volunteers get the lip service, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, it's almost 7:45, so.
Okay. Yeah, it's, guys, we're getting going. So any other additions to this? And
I just wanted to make a general comment that, I'm on the long range committee and looked through that material last couple of weeks ago. And besides being just totally shocked at how much money it costs to do some of these projects, I was just totally shocked at how few projects there are in the community here and how many there are in Claremont. It's just like they have so much more there. And I don't know if they're the greasy wheel or how they get it up there. I don't think they're any more deserving than we are to get things done. And
How do you think?
You just go like, what happened here? How come like 3/4 of all the projects are in Claremont? So I don't know, for whatever reason you might think that is. I just think, at one point we were talking about maybe, I think, going around and looking at streets or writing them down on this committee to see if they were bad. I did that with Barnard Street, and it finally got on the list because I talked to Linus or whatever his name was, and I told him about it, and he never heard of that street. But believe it or not, a week or so later, he told me he drove on that street and called me back and said it really needed to be fixed. I think a lot of these streets, no one looks at them and no one grades them because they're now up on next door. A couple days ago, they were taking bump signs off of the street that has one of those tables that you're talking about, Nicole, on it. And they said, well, they're going to redo the street. And I'm going, that street's in perfect condition as far as I can see. But tons of them aren't over here. I mean, maybe it's more of a commercial street and they want to put our best foot forward as a city. But like my street has a bunch of chunks falling out of the middle of it right now. And some of them are undrivable almost. I just don't know. I don't know who's running the show as far as how they're grading things that have to happen. And you look at West Point Loma Boulevard, where they were supposed to do the bike lanes like 2 years ago. I mean, that street is in terrible condition, and you don't even hear that they're even considering it. Is it on the list? When's that going to happen?
So both West Point Loma and Bacon are part of the city's Sexy Streets initiative. They are scheduled to have overlay projects and be resurfaced. So Bacon and West Point Loma are, and I'll just let you know that City Council actually approved the OCI, which is the studying of our streets, which was last 2013. So that is like $1 million budget to go look at all city streets. But there are 3,000 miles of streets. So you tell them, which community.
Yeah. And every one of those streets is served by a street sweeper, and they don't even know what's going on there and how to fix the program that they've been running for static since 2015. And they say they're making changes, and they're making no changes in our area at all. So
Yeah,
do you really
60
think someone was out looking at those streets to see how many cars were parked there and how much debris was on the side of the street? No.
And we need to learn how to fix this problem so it sustains itself, not go around retar, it rains, and then the potholes come back within 6 months again. It's just like
We've
the
got to hold them
revolving door.
accountable. We've got to hold them accountable, and we need the community to follow up. And that's exactly what we have been doing with Barnard. This whole Sexy Street thing, that's another thing that's costing everyone so much money. Where are the Sexy Streets in Point Loma? Someone show me, because I don't see any.
Well, the other
We ought
issue
to
is
do-
there's an equity component to that Sexy Streets as well. That kind of disqualifies some of our streets.
What they could do is they could just take some cameras and just stick them on the garbage trucks and rotate them. And probably within 2 months, they'd have every street, they'd have video of every street or something like that. Or put a video on the street sweeper so you could see how many times it's just going down the middle of the street and there's nothing to do because it can't get to the curb. It's a waste of money, a waste of fuel, a waste of manpower, a waste of equipment to be running stuff where you're not doing any good.
But once they fix them, they should try to, I wish the streets would sustain themselves, and they don't.
Yeah. Well.
There's
All right,
a lot
well,
on them. So Mandy, I'll make a motion to accept the letter with the 4 additional projects.
Well, I have 5. I've got the Froud and Voltaire flashing beacon. I've got the street sweeping and then I've got the number 3 is prioritize the repairs, surfacing and servicing on bike routes in our community.
I think we need to be more specific than that. That's not a good answer. That's just a general statement. That's not anything specific.
Okay. That, I think so. Then Delanna, I know you had requested that. Is there an area that you are?
Yes,
thinking
I'll
of?
say Bacon Street
But that's
Newport to West Point Loma Boulevard.
not in our boundary though. So
If we're the
Already on the
Peninsula
list, I
thing,
think.
how is that not in our boundary?
that's in the Ocean Beach planning boards. Everything east of Froud is ours, but after that, that's OB planning board.
I
So
think it's on the budget letter already.
And it's being identified. So you have Voltaire and Froud. Did you get Scott Street? Mandy?
no, I did not.
So we sent a letter on 11/4/21. And then
Okay, so really quick. They're not in the long range planning letter yet. I'm wanting to I only want to add the ones that have not been put in the long range planning. So we have the Froud and Voltaire flashing beacon as the first one. The second one is street sweeping. You're stating the next one you want is,
Scott Street is one of them.
and what do we need on Scott Street?
You can pull up the letter from 11/4/21 and take the words right out of there. Paul has them all nice on the website. That's where I found
That
them.
was where, that was the bike lanes, right? That
No,
was
it
a bike
wasn't.
lane
It was
facility.
pedestrian crossing, I believe.
Impact, yeah, for the state, okay. Scott Street, okay.
We have identified Catalina Hill and Santa Barbara on 11/29/21.
That one has already been done, I believe.
Catalina Hill and Santa Barbara?
Yes, the Cade Street design, they took out the,
The
They took-
striping.
they
Talking
took
the
out the
traffic
striping
signal?
off of it.
Oh,
Well,
did that-
I can throw it in there.
I didn't realize they made any improvements.
Yeah, they just removed the, the solid white line, because people were stopping short. And they removed that solid white.
Did that help?
Yeah, it's helped reduce some confusion there, but it's
Depends
still.
depends on where you're
it's still-
driving. It doesn't help if you're trying to make a left from
No,
Hill Street and cars are right in front of you.
I'll add that
It's a horrible
too.
intersection as it is.
And then the last and most important is Nimitz and I-8. And that letter was 11/29/21.
Okay. Yeah, but you're missing some of these, you said Chatsworth and Plumosa is on.
So that's already on the letter.
That's already on the letter. We're missing the streetlights. We need to add that as a priority
Already.
for funding.
On there.
It's already on there. So we need the flashing beacon, we need street sweeping, we need the Scott Street letter, and then we need the Nimitz I-8 letter, and then the K Street Catalina Santa Barbara letter. We're doing that one. What about Sunset Cliffs?
It's already, well, there's funding for a linear park there. It's in the
Yeah, but it's
letter.
already listed. Yeah, that's enough. So that's fine. So we're adding, and should we add our separate letter? Or should we just bring like a friendly amendment to add to the long range planning letter? That's my next question.
Bring in the 5 extra ones onto that letter.
Okay, yeah, just keep it all in one package. So I'm gonna go back through this again. The first one is the Froud and Voltaire flashing beacon. The second one is the street sweeping ask. The third one is our Scott Street ask. The fourth one is the K Street design at Catalina, Santa Barbara, and Hill. And then the fifth one would be the Nimitz and I-8. And we all have letters for those asks that we'd like
And
to
this-
prioritize.
And this is in no particular order, correct?
Correct.
They're not in any particular order, and if they're missing off the list, such as Sunset Cliffs or the lighting, they have already been addressed in the original long-range planning letter for us. So we don't want to duplicate our efforts. And so these 5 asks are going to be added as friendly amendments to the long-range planning letter that's already in existence.
I'll make the motion to send that amendment.
Okay, I'll second it. Or,
And just really, Mandy, just identifying that these have already had submitted letters. Some of them even have project IDs. So, just that they already have been vetted.
I
is fine.
love that idea because again, the accountability is key that we've already touched base on that. So I appreciate that, Nicole.
letters already asked for. Okay, so going forward, we've got a motion, Margaret, Mandy second, all in favor? Three, okay. All right, we're good to go. 3. And then we're missing Tina, right? Is that 1, 2, 3? Yeah, 6 to 0, okay. All right, action item number 4. This is something that came up. Was it you, Margaret, that had brought this up it came up in a news clip? It's the right
Yes.
turn at Nimitz and West Point Loma Boulevard. That area, it was listed in the news segment. They didn't have any names of the neighbors who brought it forward. So I
have a few
reach
of
out.
I have a few of their emails.
Okay. So I'd like to open up the floor, Paul, and I know Angela's not here tonight, but she had made some recommendations in an email. And so I'd like to open up the floor and kind of talk about that and see where we'd like to go. Excuse me.
Okay, I sent out an email with my ideas a while ago and tag teaming on top of oh gosh, Angela, who came up with some ideas, and we could just throw them out there, I guess. The area seems to have problems where, especially it's kind of dark, you're coming around a curve, and even if it's sunny out, the trees are above it and the sun is being blocked. There's about 125 feet of vision. If you're going like 40 miles an hour, you're talking about 3 or 4 seconds maybe before you're going to run into something. It looks like an off ramp, and a lot of people may just decide that they don't need to stop at a stop sign. They may not know that there is a crosswalk there. So I think one thing I wrote was that I thought that it should extend the white line, but I believe that's been done for the bike lane all the way up to the stop sign. So the biggest things I think we can do is put double like signage on both sides of the street in the curve that says there's a crosswalk ahead. And maybe even underneath the stop sign, they might be able to put a secondary sign that says crosswalk with an arrow down or something or other. The other thing is at night, the traffic light or the street light is about 100 feet away from the intersection. It's kind of in the middle of the curve. And I think we need a street light either on top of it or relocate the one that's there over to that location so somebody would see it. I guess a lot of people walk their dogs over to the dog park from that area and cross that intersection. And I've done it myself several times where you're thinking like, as soon as you get ready to step out, you are going to be scooting because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, obviously you can make it across the street if somebody's going 40 miles an hour and they got 150 feet to go. But if you're in a wheelchair or pushing a baby or got a dog, you never know what's going to happen. So something's got to get fixed there.
Yes, and so Angela had made some recommendations in our emails to add some signage as people round that corner. She provided some samples of it. I can screen share and show you what she's provided if you want to take a look at that. Can you all see it?
Yep.
So I'm just going to scroll down because she had some other things to add to it. Oh, here she goes again. So this is the view of it as you're making that right turn. I love these pictures. The recon you guys do is awesome. So there's the back of the stop sign.
They did a good job with that on-ramp too.
I think so too. And another opportunity is, is there issues on the other side because they just recently changed that other on-ramp, on the OB side. But again, another opportunity is Matt had made a recommendation for a mirror that might help with the visibility of that turn as well. And I'm fine with, making that recommendation as well. My only concern was that the reflection, I don't know if they have any anti-reflection. I just worry about the sun blinding, people in that intersection as they're approaching it with the sun. That's the only thing that was problematic to me.
I doubt for a driver, if they're going that fast, that they're going to notice a mirror is going to tell them anything. because they're kind of concaved, I think, and it's kind of like in your car mirror. The items look smaller than they really are. A person wouldn't look very big in them. It might help for someone who is a pedestrian to see a car coming, though, on the other half, and maybe that was what it was intended to say.
So just looking at this, is there any other, any recommendations that we could make as an ask that you think would help improve the safety and the visibility of this location?
Besides putting something like bot dots across, or rumble strip, maybe at the stop line, they could have some embedded bot dots that might have like reflectors in them for at night. Besides that, I'm not quite sure, what you can do. I'm looking here and there are fluorescent green signs, and I'm not sure if you can have them. There's a pedestrian fluorescent green yellow sign for pedestrian crossings. I don't know when you use that or if it's available in California, but that might be a little bit more, might stand out a little more than the yellow ones.
Okay. Thank you, Delana.
The other thing I would add is all those signs that already indicate potential pedestrian crossing is an auxiliary sign underneath those that say yield to pedestrians. Something else that catches attention, because maybe take away that stop sign and put in the flashing pedestrian crossing signs, or at some intersections, like down on Harbor Drive near the Star of India, they have an actual stoplight. Pedestrians push it and they get the right of way. So those would be two things. You could make it just specifically for that lane, not to go across the whole thing, but that might help.
You bring up a good point as to whether if a pedestrian is standing there and they see that they're protected by a stop sign, they may be thinking they're protected when someone's running through that sign. If it was a yield or something different, then maybe they would be a little more concerned or conscious that they've got to scoot. Now, I'm not trying to say that they need to get running, but the news program that was on showed 2 or 3 people that just blew right through there. It looks like an off ramp on a freeway, and you don't really expect a stop sign to be there.
I have a question for Paul and Nicole, because you guys seem to be experts on the different types of safety measures that we can utilize. I was outside of Catch, and this will pertain to what we're talking about. I was outside of Catch in Point Loma over the weekend, and every time I sit or go to Catch, I noticed that I don't know what the name of that crosswalk is. It's right in front of Catch where the lights supposedly are supposed to go off if you press the button. I'm telling you, I watched probably a good 4 or 5 instances where the pedestrians touched and pressed that button, and cars were speeding right through it, because they have these little, the lights on the floor. They don't have it where the lights on the floor light up. They just have these little tiny yellow lights. And if it's daytime, you can't see those lights flashing. And then where Point Loma High School is, that they have a similar exact same type of setup, but the lights on the floor flash. So pedestrians are a little bit more safer that way. Are there 2 different types of those?
There
Am I
are.
seeing 2 different types?
There are. What you could be looking at is an older version. My understanding is they're not putting the lights in those on the bottom of the crosswalk anymore, because they just get damaged easily from the cars going over it. Is there, I don't know.
So
We
I was
don't.
just asking because when we're recommending some of this stuff in the letters, I just want to make sure we are recommending the right thing.
Well, I'm looking here at Shelter Island Drive, right where you're talking about at the Catch. and there are 3 rows of dot dots before you get to the crosswalk. The
Yeah.
crosswalk is a different color. It's kind of like a colored concrete. It is not a continental crosswalk, but it has a white line on both sides, just like a regular crosswalk. And then there is the signal flashing beam, I guess, the flashing beacon, which, like you say, maybe most people don't care about.
It was pretty scary. And I did witness, every single pedestrian that I witnessed using that jump back from not getting hit.
Well, they just resurfaced that area. They got rid of the stamped concrete and
Okay.
smoothed it out because people were tripping, I guess, with heels. I wonder if that mitigated something, or they maybe lost some of those lights, because it used to stand out more.
It did. Okay, thank you. I have.
Yeah, I'm looking at, go ahead, Nicole.
Well, yeah, and I was just gonna say your observations are correct, Margaret. There's actually quite a bit of videos on flashing beacons wherever they're placed. Cars just are not stopping for people at those. And so they are kind of that treatment of, they're not are they the safest, right? Like, what are we doing here? And then, or is enforcement needed to make sure that cars are stopping, and letting pedestrians? We just have a car culture society, and we have pedestrians that are guests in the city. And I believe the street lighting is just a secondary budgetary, like if it, I didn't know it was old. I actually think Point Loma is actually not fairly, it's in the last. So, I just think it's extra budget money to have it in the ground.
There was a request to, is there an opportunity to have the city install lighting to promote visibility of that intersection? Is there a deficit there, or is there an opportunity to put a light that would light up that little turn, or a flashing, like always have like a flashing light there, like maybe a yellow or something to always alert them, like, hey, there's something going on over here? Has that been determined to be helpful?
I think this is a Port District issue, possibly too.
Yeah, no, I'm back to West Point Loma and Nimitz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
I'm not talking about the
Sorry.
port, but
Well, you put flashing beacons in that are on all the time. Maybe like they flash intermittently across from a sign like this, one on, one off. Or you can have the a person activated sign one.
I would say, again, back to the beacon. I like the beacon, but the issue that I have with the beacon is it's inconsistent and people don't listen to it. And my thought is, if we did have, like you said, Paul, like an alternating light there, I don't know if any studies show that, hey, you're coming up on an intersection, flashing light, people tend to, I don't know, I tend to slow down and be more mindful. And then, at night, I don't know if the visibility issues at night are there at all, if a light needs to be
I think
there.
it's
But
terrible down there at night. There's no light at all, and the street light is 100 feet away almost, right at that intersection, right where the crosswalk is.
And it didn't seem like nighttime was being requested, so I don't know if it's necessarily like a street light issue. It seemed to be more like the news brief was that it was throughout the day. So,
well, maybe they're walking their dogs. They're not going to do it at night or something.
yeah. But even that flashing light, would be a mitigation potentially for that at night as well. That people are going to see that flashing light. Being that this is something new and we're kind of, I would be fine with, rather than, outside of making a request for a few things, we can table this and bring it back to a future meeting in January and maybe think about some other ideas and then come up with more of a concrete plan of what we'd like to see at that, for that turn. What is everyone's thoughts on that?
That would be fine with me. I was just thinking, and that, it's the turn is kind of similar to the one where the child got killed up by Jensen's, where it's like a free turn and there's some kind of signal or light, but it's kind of a blind turn. And I don't know what you do about that. The one thought I had was that maybe just close it and have people go up to the intersection, because they used to have like an extra lane there that wasn't used, but now it's entirely a bike lane up there at the red light. And of course, that would cut down on the flow of traffic. But I think there's got hopefully a better way to take care of it than something drastic like that.
Let's go ahead and table it and then come back at the beginning of the year. Well, we're not going to have any more traffic meetings until the beginning of the year. So that can give us some time to think about it, and then we can bring it as an action item for the next traffic meeting. That's a motion to table action item number 4, and then we'll bring it back as an action item for a future meeting to discuss. Anyone second that? Or
I'll second,
Okay,
Mandy.
I'll second it.
okay, so we're going to table it, and I'll bring it and bring back at January meeting. Then can we get a vote?
Margaret, yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, 5. All right. All right, good. All right, let's go back to the information items. Information items, Nicole, at the beginning of the meeting, we switched it. You want to start talking about the e-bike item first, and then we'll go into the next portion that you had brought. Go ahead, Nicole, sorry.
Well, I didn't actually have the e-bike discussion as the agenda item, but I wanted to let whoever put that on the agenda. And I'm honestly thinking we've lost a few of our members. We have our participants. It's been 2 hours.
Yeah.
The 2 items for January.
I would be completely fine with that. I'm pretty exhausted myself. And also, Nicole, that e-bike thing, I'd like to potentially move that as an action item. You're saying that there's some opportunities that La Jolla and was it Torrey Pines or Del Mar had made some changes to e-bikes. Maybe we could make a recommendation. Weren't you telling me that, or was that Matt? I don't per se have any recommendations, but the e-bike conversation is, I mean, that was put on the agenda last 2 months ago, and we never reached to it. We never got to it. So okay,
on the agenda again, and I want to let people express why it's on the agenda and let them have a word before I understand what.
Sure. Okay, so then that one, you'll want to table that as well. Okay.
I don't know of any specific recommendations off the top of my head to deal with that at the moment.
Okay. All right, Delana?
I did not put it on the agenda. I'm glad it's there. And my recommendation would be that we advise recommend that the city of San Diego get in line with the cities of Del Mar, Carlsbad, Encinitas, et cetera, with putting forward specific parameters for e-bikes. They've done a really good job, and as all within the same county and especially along the coastal areas, we need to be following suit and having our enforcement be along the same lines, because they're out of control, they're dangerous. And as with a whole lot of other things, our city council waits until things are a huge problem and then they decide to think about it. And by then it just almost goes nowhere. So I support having it be an action item next time. And that's my recommendation that we go toward.
Delana, can you forward me any of that information that you have, and then we can add that? But you gave me some names. You said Del Mar.
You know, it's the city. All I have is what I read in the newspaper.
Okay.
And since I read the paper online, I don't have anything that I can really go back.
That's fine.
and
What were the
reference
names?
to.
It was Del Mar and
Almost all the coastal cities,
Carlsbad.
Carlsbad, Encinitas, Solana Beach, Del Mar, they've come together and done a lot.
okay.
Honestly, so on that note, what they're doing a lot of is education. So that's the biggest thing that they're doing. And
Well, I think that would be an opportunity for us to be leaders and show leadership in that. And if that's something that we can put together in January, I think that would be appropriate. Because again, these e-bikes, especially with these kids, every time with drop off and pick up, it's pretty gnarly things I'm observing with that. And so there's some opportunity to educate the public for sure.
No, they do turn 16 in about a year or two later, and they're just as reckless as cars. So
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a-
mindfulness while you're going through our community. All right, it's 8:14. If there's nothing else, we're gonna just table all the information items till the following meeting in January. Are we all good with that?
Yep.
All right, so first, I'll make the motion, and then who wants to, do you have to second that? Or does it have to be an official motion, just in case?
be an official motion.
I
on
would
this.
just adjourn the meeting because you don't have a quorum.
Right.
Okay.
Good.
8:15. All right, the meeting is adjourned at 8:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
so
Good
much.
job, Mandy.
Um,
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone.
Good night, everybody. Good work.
Night.
We'll see you on Thursday.